Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first official Tracking the Dragon convention. To commemorate the occasion of Bruce Lee's 50th birthday, this is the only convention endorsed by the Bruce Lee estate, and is brought to you today by Mr. George Tan, the celebrated author of the Tracking the Dragon volumes, and Mr. Chris Alexis, founding member of the Marshall Club, and unsung promotion experts in all things Bruce Lee. There's a small change to the advertised schedule owing to unforeseen circumstances. Mr. Bolo Young has prior filming commitments with Jean-Claude Van Damme. But we have a very, very special guest star whose identity I predict will both delight and astound you. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on our first celebrity guest. Please welcome Mr. George Tan. Right, there's very little I can say when I'm in the presence of this fellow, so I would like to keep things moving. I think the best way we can have George speak to you is if we discuss people who worked with Bruce and bring you up to date on what they're doing at this moment. So to begin with, George, can you tell us about the action director that Bruce used in his films, Mr. Hung Yin Jae?
Okay, I'm assuming that everyone has seen all of Bruce's movies more than once. Han Yun-jae was the villain in the Big Boss, and he was Mr. Why did you kill my teacher? The gentleman on the receiving end. I tried to interview him last year, and he refused. And I felt a little offended, but I later found out that he was very sick, and he didn't want anyone to see him in the condition he was in. And a few months later he died, which was unfortunate because any information he had went to the grave with him. But after making the film, the two films with Bruce, they had a parting of ways because Bruce was going in his direction, and he didn't need someone like Han Yun-jae to dictate to him what to do.
Thank you, George. Now, I think everybody in the audience will remember the young Maria Yi, the co-star from The Big Boss.
Maria Yi did the smart thing. She married into money. She got out of the film business, right? And she's living in Taiwan now. I think her husband's in the textile business. And I mean, she liked Bruce very much. She said she never met. She said, I never met a Chinese like him. He was so different. And she said if Bruce had asked me to make more movies, I would have stayed in the business. But she just got married and settling down now.
What about Nora Mal, the co-star from both the Big Boss and Fist of Fury?
Okay, Nora's still active. I don't know how she does it, but she gets more and more beautiful each time I see her. Nora used to be a singer before she got into films, and she's gone back to singing. She tours around the world to Chinatowns and so on. You might even see her in London Chinatown one day. She was recently in New York. She's planning to migrate to Canada after the 97 ordeal. What I felt from her is this woman really, really loved Bruce. I mean, in her heart, she would do anything for this man. They talk about how Betty Ting Pei and so on. Nora would do anything for this man. I don't know what ulterior motives Betty had, but Nora, anything she did for Bruce was coming from the heart. One incident I want to relate to you about Nora. She's traditional Chinese still inside, and when Bruce died, she asked Linda if she could stay in the house because she believed that, maybe Bruce's spirit would come back. And Linda said, no, okay. And Nora seemed satisfied to do that. I don't know anyone else who was willing to take that kind of trouble, and it just shows.
Perhaps a lady the audience will have wondered about from time to time. Angela Moy Ying, Bruce's sister in Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, I found out recently that Angela lives in New York, where I'm from. Again, she married into money also, but she's presently in Taiwan. She does little bit parts and this and that. She hasn't changed either. She looks the same like she did back when she was making, Lady Whirlwind and Enter the Dragon. I don't know how they do it, but she's still dynamite. And currently, we're planning on teaming Angela up with Cynthia Rothrock, where Angela would play Cynthia's teacher. I think that would be a nice way to, to pass on the crown, so to speak.
What about Mr. Williams, Went in the Dragon, Jim Kelly?
Okay, Jim, I have to say is a very, very bitter guy about I don't know what. Out of it, but I found him. He was still a little arrogant and belligerent, and I didn't get very positive things from him. But just to steer away from the question a minute concerning Kelly, he was offered so many opportunities to succeed, and he just, pardon the expression, just pissed him away. He had every opportunity to make it big, but he never trained, he never did anything. And when I think about it, none of these guys trained to match the level of Bruce Lee. Chuck Norris, Van Damme, Ron Van Cleef, all these guys, they couldn't touch Bruce Lee, man. They couldn't kiss his big toe. They can't. And what really surprises me is the level of quality that's gone down from Kelly on upwards, where Bruce took us to a certain level, and it seems to be digressing with every new star coming out. And Kelly to be bitter to me is I don't understand, because he shouldn't have made as many movies as he did. After the first one, we should have all just shut him down.
I'm almost afraid to ask you about the next man, Mr. Bob Wall.
Yeah, the first thing Bob ever told me, came out of his mouth, was, "You realize that I could have beaten Bruce 1, 2, 3." So I was very polite to him because I needed materials from him. And, he went on to say, about this, that. I mean, the man has a very bad ego problem. And originally, Mr. Bob Baker, Bruce wanted Bob Baker to play the Bob Wall roles, but, it was either schedule problems or Warner Brothers didn't want him. There's always something happening. I think personally Bob Baker would have made a better opponent. But the only reason Bruce used the guy, by the way, was, as he put it, Bob gets hit so damn well. So, Bob, I found, he like guys like Ed Parker, Bob, in their hearts, they envy Bruce, but they hate him because of who he was and what he can do. Because here are these guys who are trying to make it and so on. And a long time, this little Chinese guy, and he could do whatever he wants at will. Or if these guys work so hard for, all right, Bruce could just do, they show you, Bob said, I'd show him my best technique and he could do it better than me on the spot. So Bob really didn't have, he had a few nice things to say, but they were covered with a veil of hatred. So I can't say anything positive about Bob because no one else who, in the Bruce Lee family, so to speak, and Bob was part of that family for a while. And when he went out and told people private things about Bruce, that was like a betrayal. That's like one of your family members going out to the public, to total strangers, and telling them your family secrets. That's how they felt about him. So I really would like to get off the subject of Bob.
Amen. Right, I think we'd finally like to ask you about Mr. Han, Shekian.
Oh, Shekin is a really traditional, like he plays the traditional Kung Fu master, because he's from that era. I mean, the guy's in his 70s. Unfortunately, he's confined to a wheelchair now because he's getting sicker and sicker. He's still healthy, but he's just having leg problems. And the one interesting thing about him is he didn't realize, he knew Bruce when he was a little kid, making movies. So I don't think in his mind, he realized what Bruce Lee had evolved into. And even to the day that I would speak to him, the guy it didn't penetrate his mind what Bruce Lee had accomplished. He always remembered Bruce as the little kid. But one thing I remember is I had this, like a Japanese graphic novel, and it had the whole Enter the Dragon story in it. And this man actually sat and looked at every single page of the thing. He spent about 15, 20 minutes just looking through it, which I've never seen anyone do that. So the good news is he's still around. The bad news is I don't know for how much longer.
Can I have a warm British thank you for Mr. George Chan? I think George would like to give you a few background pieces about our first celebrity guest.
All right. Howard Williams, you've probably never heard of. Howard is part of James Lee Oakland School. And I found Howard through another person who basically he's a pretty crazy guy, but it's just amazing how what one thing leads into another. And when I found Howard, I said that this is, I couldn't believe what he was telling me. Then, I mean, he had to physically show me what he was talking about. And I have to say, this guy is the most awesome fighter I have ever seen. I mean, this man studied with Bruce when he was 15. He never practiced martial arts before, and all the information that's been put into him is from Bruce and Jimmy. The man is pure Jeet Kune Do. No contamination, no poisons. And he's got superb genetics. So he can make the JKD work on the level of Bruce. He's got speed, he's got power, he's got reflexes, his neural system is very high. So when I saw Howard, he was reluctant to come out to the public. He said, because he saw other people commercializing, bastardizing the system, basically for profit. And he said, I don't want to be associated with that clan. I said, Howard, people care out there. There are people who really want to learn. They really want to see what it's about. So he finally agreed to come. And I mean, I'm really happy to introduce Mr. Howard Williams.
Well, then Mr. Howard Williams. Oh, just done that, Howard. Now, you are a long-standing member of the Auckland clan and student of Bruce Lee, touted as the fastest JKD fighter on the planet. Can you tell us a little of your martial arts background and how you came to meet Bruce Lee?
I was 15 years old when I first started, and it was through my mother and stepfather that I met Bruce first. What had happened was they were going to try to find a school for me, and my real father didn't want me to take any martial arts at all. So I had to actually run away from home to live with my mother and go through the whole system in order to take this. And then one day he came to me and said he found something that was faster than karate. And I was really fascinated by that. So I said, what could that possibly be? And he said, Kung Fu at that time. And so we went down to the place, and that's when I first met Bruce. I met Bruce as he was actually getting prepared to go to Los Angeles, California to make Green Hornet. And then from that point, I met Jimmy Lee and stayed with him ever since.
Thank you, Howard. As speed figures greatly in your armory, can you tell us how your speed compares to Bruce at his peak?
I don't like to compare my speed with Bruce. To hit the whole thing of Jeet Kune Do is geared towards one's individual self. I am, for myself, the art is tailor-made to me and my speed, whereas Bruce's was made to tailor-made to him and his speed. I was told by James that mine came natural, whereas Bruce's, he had to work at it. But I also had to work, believe me. It's nothing that comes easy. There are many types of speed, and genetics. Genetics has a lot to do with it. So it's still hard work either way it goes.
You were training with Bruce in the school on Telegraph Avenue in Auckland following the One Jack Man confrontation, and this led Bruce to reevaluate his approach to combat. How would you describe this transition period?
Personally, I feel if it wasn't for that particular incident, Bruce would have not developed into what he is today, or would have been at the time, and would have been today, because it allowed him to realize the limitations of what he had, and that he was human, and he had to overcome some of the frailties that comes with being human, and it was really a chore for him to discover the cause of his ignorance, to improve upon himself, and then pass the legacy on to the rest of us. So it really was beneficial to have that confrontation.
Thank you. I imagine you'll be conversant with a series of articles Gary Dill has written for the Black Belt magazine, and his study with James Yin Lee. He signed off those articles describing himself as on the board of directors of the Jeet Kune Do Society. Can you tell me, what does this entail, and are you involved with this?
No, I'm not a part of any alliance. I don't believe in being a part of anything that is clan related or would do anything to that nature to mass produce fighters and stylize them into a certain category. And besides, Gary Dill, I don't like to personally put down any martial artist, but if I'm looking at a person and he's telling a lie, and I know he's lying, then it's my obligation to help to educate the public and let them know that this is not real. Otherwise, I'm a part of that lie, and I don't want to be a part of any untruth when it comes to Jeet Kune Do. And truly, in my estimation, he's not teaching truth as it relates to pure Jeet Kune Do. It may be according to him, but he personally did not even come from my school, so I can't endorse him as a true Jeet Kune Do practitioner.
No. Well, speaking of James Lee, he's been portrayed in numerous articles down the years as something of a dour, no-nonsense individual. How did you meet him, and what are your memories of his relationship with Bruce Lee?
Well, James and Bruce had a relationship together that were like father and son and best friend. Bruce really took to him, and everything that he gave to James, and James gave to us. I enjoyed being with Jimmy because he was a personal. He was really down to earth and personal, and was able to just come out there and just bring the best out of you, and let you know how it's done and why it's done and when to do it. And you were free to ask any questions you want. And being that I was the youngest person in the class, I was actually thrown into the advanced class and was told that don't worry, that eventually I would catch on, because the routine will be repeated several times. And so I was determined that I would make it, and James really helped me to relax and to be myself, and he really molded me, and I really appreciate what he done for me, him and Bruce. And Bruce would occasionally come down and he would show us his latest development, and we would take it, and then James would make sure we learned it properly.
Okay. You grew up in a very tough Western Auckland area. How would you describe your development in martial arts through having been brought up in such a tough area of Auckland?
Well, I was born in what we call West Oakland, which is a real bad town, and you're forced to fight to survive and to maintain a level of proficiency that you would not ordinarily understand without having been there. But it forced me to realize that I wanted to learn something that would add to my ability to take care of myself. And Jeet Kune Do helped me not only to learn how to physically defend myself, but it also taught me how to avoid situations and encounters, because that's more important than actual combat. But sometimes you can't help it, especially in that area. Oakland is it's a murder capital of the entire United States. I think it's about 187 murders this year and is still climbing every day. It's not easy to live out there, but you can if you understand who you are.
And finally, Howard, how do you think Bruce would have evolved as a martial artist had he lived to see his 50th birthday?
Wow, that's a hard question. Being that he was already kind of light years ahead of a lot of us in the martial arts world, being that the reason being is that he understood what it meant to explore oneself and discover the cause of your ignorances and weaknesses. Whereas a lot of us, we are looking forward to accumulating things, putting things and piling them up. He was constantly eliminating them. So, and a lot of people have that problem today still. So being that he was the way he was then, he would have still been that far ahead of a lot of us today. And when your mind is free, you can create. And that was one of his major assets, is his creativity and ability to adapt to anything, or try to adapt to most everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Howard Williams. Now, there's a few other things to tell you. Firstly, if you have any questions to put to the celebrity guests, this will be following the individual interviews. So please feel free, but following the interviews that we do on the stage, all it requires you just raise your hand and we'll identify you, and it saves a lot of toing and froing and people calling out and everything. I think George will want to introduce this next guest.
I met Bob Baker through another student of Bruce and Jimmy's named Lloyd Freitas. And at first, Bob was even reluctant to even speak to anybody. So we finally arranged to meet thanks to Doc Freitas, as we call him. He was Freitas was the veterinarian for Bruce's dog. And we went up to see him, and Bob made it very clear that if this guy, meaning me, says anything that I don't like, I'm going to throw him out of my house. So talking to him for about 5 minutes, I realized that he really meant that he would pick me up and throw me out of his house. So I broke the ice by telling him an anecdote that I had heard. That I said, Bob, is it true that Jimmy was the only guy that Bruce knew that could do a pox sow with a beer in his hand and not spill a drop? And Bob just broke up, and that seemed to break the ice. And it took me 1.5 years to convince him to come to something like this. My personal feeling is Jimmy and Bruce were probably his dearest friends, and he lost both of them within a 6-7 month period. So it's a very painful thing for the man. So what I think, for him to actually come out for the first time anywhere in the world, and to actually to speak to people about his relationships with the guy is very big and honorable on his part. He has a lot of anecdotes about Bruce Lee the man, Bruce Lee, all aspects. I would have to say that Bob was probably, if not the best friend of Bruce, probably in the top 3. I mean, when Bruce hurt his back, Bob stayed there for 2-3 weeks massaging his back. When Bruce wanted to write his notes, Bob went and got the paper for Bruce to write on. I mean, he treated him like a brother, a son, a father, anything. And that's why you haven't read anything about Bob. You haven't, like, he disappeared off the face of the earth. So I hope you appreciate what this man's gonna, give to you today. So can you really give a good, warm welcome for Bob Baker?
Hi, Bob. Well, first of all, welcome to the United Kingdom. Is this your first visit to England?
Yes, it is.
Apart from your appearance in the Chinese Connection or Fist of Fury as we know it here, very little is known about your further involvement with Bruce. After all, you've been friends for some 10 years. Tell me, how did you first meet Bruce Lee?
I met Bruce Lee through James Lee. I was studying with James Lee, and I just met Bruce one day, and that was it.
Well, in his book, The Incomparable Fighter, the ex-Black Belt magazine publisher Mito Uehara refers to you on a number of occasions, most notably the encounter between Bruce and yourself at the 1967 Summer Long Beach tournament, during which you apparently volunteered to hold the pad. Bruce's now famous one-inch punch. Can you care to tell us what took place?
Well, the man just almost split my sternum.
Really?
It was I always volunteered to hold the shield and take the punches because I felt it was a way of learning. Maybe it sounds stupid to some people, but I'm not a masochist or a sadist or anything. But I just thought it was part of it. Just made me look better.
Yeah.
You've spoken of the amusing incidents on Fist of Fury, like during the grappling scene where you had Bruce in the splits and he bit you. What happened to Bruce during that scene?
Well, I couldn't respond the way that he wanted me to, so I said, well, fight him. And when he bit down on my leg, well, I yanked my leg out naturally, and almost took his teeth out too. You don't see it on the screen, but it was, I think it was cut off. It was just cut. But I almost yanked his teeth out.
You've spoken of the actual force of contact during the different fighting scenes. Did you actually hit each other?
And yes, we did. Except for a few of the scenes where I was imitating Wandu and really trying to look more like a karate stylist, a Hung Gar, which is the hard style, the Chinese Kung Fu. I really just sparred out with him after that.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much what you saw was pretty much really kicks and a bit of punches.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, Bob, having spent so much time with Bruce, what was it you most enjoyed about him?
Let's see. Oh, I just love the man. I don't know what to say about that. There's nothing I can say. I really don't know what to say.
I think that says it all, Bob. Well, thanks for being so generous with your reminiscences. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Baker. Right, now we'll take some questions from the floor. Now, please, if you have any questions, just raise your hand, we'll identify you, and then we'll take the question. Rather than shouting and getting a bit confusing. So, first of all, any questions for either Bob or Howard? Young man there in the middle. Is it true, Bob, you fought a promotional fight with Bruce that wasn't ever shown?
Yes. Well, not really. There was a trailer, really, for the advertisement of Fist of Fury. And actually, I've seen some pictures here that I forgot all about. It brings back some very good memories. The one that somebody had here, two of us bumping shoulders, which was from this fight scene. We had to keep reshooting it because we were having so much fun bumping into each other, and knocking each other down, that took quite a few shots just to get that one little scene. It was all in all I remember was nothing but fun.
Anyone else? Bob or Howard? Sorry? I'm sorry, I'm not getting it. It's a bit personal, that, though. How old are you, Bob?
I'm 50 years old. I'm 6 months older than Bruce would have been. Pardon? Well, same age as him.
Yo. Get down. Right. Come on, open up a bit. Any more questions? This is it. Thank you.
Quite scary. I didn't know I looked like that. Although I was aware of what I looked like, but I never realized it was, when you see yourself so, well, I really never had my picture taken too many times. Uh, when I saw myself on the screen, 20 feet tall, I said, whoa, go from nothing to something. That's one way to jump to it, and I sure did. It was quite exciting, really. I enjoyed it. It was quite an ego thing just to see it. But it was really kind of interesting to watch other people's responses too. Of course, all my friends, I take them to see it. And they'd go, hey, Bob, that looks just like you. Naturally, That's right.
Guy in the middle. Who's that addressed to? What was the question again? What did the training session consist of, Bruce's workouts?
Just for myself or for Howard?
You see, Bob and I were in the same school, so either one of us could have answered that one. It was very regimental. In fact, our class was real small because the people could not keep the paces of the training. They were looking for some magical secret to becoming good and efficient, and there's no such thing. You have to work. You have to work hard. You have to sweat. You have to hurt. And we were actually using what was like you might say real bullets with near misses. That's how real we had to train, because you fight the way you train, and it reflects in the street. So it was rough.
Anyone else? Guy the glasses.
Well, we always take care of of who's in front of us. We realize that it's just still training, but we didn't have a lot of protective equipment in those days, and the only thing that was probably protecting us was just a bare hand, But there were some slips and accidents, and Jimmy used to say, "You bleed in class, bleed in class, so that you won't out there in the street." So we didn't care about that. We realized that it's all part of training. And you have to realize that there are going to be some accidents when you train hard and for real.
Yes, that's one.
Did I ever see him lose his temper? Yes, I did. Yeah, he was quite awesome when he lost his temper. He had the ability to look right through you, and kind of chill you right to the bone. And you never did it again.
Amen. Anybody else? Guy right at the back.
Do I think that Bruce finally conquered his ego? Yeah, yes. See, that's one of the major battles with all of us. We have to sort of like die to self, be willing to get rid of the inhibitions that are inside of you in order to be free enough to deal with what's in front of you. Yes, Bruce did conquer his ego, and the main thing that he was trying to get us to do is do the same thing, which was a monumentous task. It wasn't easy. Self kept getting in the way. And I'm still working on that now. It was a lifetime thing.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Spiritually, I think that my own personal experience with Bruce said he was already there. But spiritually, he was very quite happy with himself. But that makes sense. Oh, I don't know. I'll about that out. Is that, can I answer your question? Well, everything that he did actually was martial arts first, and then movies. You know, as an actor second. People see him the other way around, but it was everybody thinks he was an actor that turned martial artist. It was he was a martial artist first, and one of the only true ones that I've ever known. When I've studied judo, aikido, karate, Shaolin Kung Fu, boxing, and everything else. And I don't know how many different styles of karate. And the only true one that I ever really thought I had it was Bruce. He was just a bargain, give spiritually. That's I tried to use a path. I had to take my own path.
I'd just like to add another thing to that. Also, one of the things that he was trying to get across to us, that he was trying to also obtain, was that if a street fight is the only place that you can apply your art, then you've missed 3/4 of its meaning. It has to be a way of life, and you have to be able to apply it in everything that you do, everything. And it's not easy, but it's obtainable, and it's a lifetime venture, not just a few years and you've got it. So.
Right, as I revealed to you all earlier, Mr. Paul Irwin is unable to attend because of the prior filming commitments, but a very special guest celebrity has made a tremendous effort to attend today's proceedings. It's not an exaggeration to say that to describe him as the icing on a very rich cake. It is the first ever public appearance of Bruce Lee's co-star from Enter the Dragon. You know him as Mr. Roper. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm British welcome to celebrate film, television and theatre star, Mr. John Saxon. Pleasure. Firstly, Mr. Saxon, I'd like to begin by welcoming you to United Kingdom. Is this your first visit to England?
No, I've been here several times. I worked here once in 1965, but I haven't been here for, well, almost 20 years. I'm very glad to be here today, and imagine the warm welcome that you're given me after a film that is made 18 years ago, a film that I almost didn't do, but that's another matter. When I went to Hong Kong, my son was 2 years old, and he was invited one day to Bruce Lee's daughter, Shauna's second birthday party. He doesn't remember any of that. He doesn't remember anything about Enter the Dragon. As a matter of fact, he didn't start going to the movies until many years later, and I think he regarded that as Enter the Dragon as one of the old films that I made, and didn't pay much attention to it until last week, actually. He called and he had discovered Enter the Dragon after 18 years. So finally I'm getting a little respect for my son. As Bob mentioned, Bruce often proclaimed that he was a martial artist first and an actor second. I've always been an actor first and someone interested in the martial arts secondarily. But watching Bruce immediately when I first met him, the success that he had already in Hong Kong, he was really a people's hero. And I've never seen anybody enjoy that position and that role more than he did. He relished being something to the people, being a celebrity. I remember asking him very quickly, what would he imagine his life might be like as an actor in years to come, would he be able to make transitions? Would he play a role that wasn't a hero, that wasn't a martial artist? He said, it was interesting and it would be something he'd think about. Unfortunately, he didn't have the opportunity to think about it because he passed on. When I first met him, he introduced me to all the equipment he had in his house. And he asked me to show him what I could do. He asked me to do a sidekick, and I did. And he said, well, let me show you how I think it should really be done. And he gave me an airbag, and he was going to demonstrate on me how he was to do this. What I didn't realize was that this was a gag, a joke that he often played on people. He had placed a chair very strategically about 15 feet behind me. And I braced myself, and he said, don't worry, I'm not going to kick you very hard. And he kicked me, and I flew 15 feet across the room into the chair, which is what he had planned, only he didn't plan that the chair would break. It was a chair that he had just bought and that he prized very greatly. So we set off our relationship with a laugh. We went out, had lunch that day, and got to know one another. We began working a short time later, and I discovered that he was a little concerned and apprehensive about this film, about being an actor, really, as I was about doing the martial arts in the film. And so we began a relationship that was kind of cooperative and respectful, and I got along very, very well with him. I never studied with Bruce Lee, as these two gentlemen have, but I spent 3 months with him, questioning him constantly and asking him all sorts of things that would come to my mind about martial arts. We were constantly engaged in that sort of thing. I think it's a great pity that he didn't have the opportunity to develop, as I think he might have, as an artist, aside from a martial artist, because he had great intelligence and a sense of theater, a sense of demonstrating and writing, really, a role for himself. I asked him one day, I said, Bruce, what would you give to be 6'2" and 190 pounds? And he answered, if I were 6'2" and 190 pounds, I would rule the world. Bruce Lee has passed on, but all your presence here indicates that in some way, obviously he hasn't. I constantly run into people who ask me questions about him. One of my most simple examples of what it's been like is one time I was in a hotel lobby in downtown Los Angeles on the telephone, and I saw a gentleman walk by me, and he saw me, and he did a big take, and I knew what was coming. He came over to me, and he said, as I was on the telephone, he said, man, he said, I got to talk to you. He says, I understand Bruce is alive. And I said, no, I'm afraid he's dead. He says, no. He says, I understand Bruce is alive. He's in a cave in Hong Kong, and he's waiting just for the right time to come out. I said, no, I'm afraid he's dead. He said, no, man, are you sure? He says, I got it on good source that Bruce is alive. He's in a cave in Hong Kong just waiting for the right time to come out. I said, his wife thinks he's dead. He said, man, what do women know? So with that, I'll just take some questions.
Any questions? Yeah.
His speed was fantastic, and his power for his size was extraordinary. The one thing that I mentioned about knocking me across the room, I think, was just commonplace, but his attack kind of power and his hardness. I mean, his body was so sinewy that in demonstrating any simple technique, even half a hit on any fleshy part of your body practically put you in paralysis. So he was tremendously strong and extremely quick. Yes, I've done a variety of things, all not very well. I first did some judo back in the late 50s, just for about a few months, never really achieved much of a status. I began karate about 1964. I studied pretty diligently for about 4 years, but that was until about 1968. My work, marriage, traveling abroad, necessitated that I just had to put my work as an actor first. I didn't have time to train. So by the time I began that film, I had really stopped any serious training, which was a kind of concern of mine. I was just doing some light calisthenics, Tai Chi Chuan, things like that, jogging, playing with weights a little bit. After working with Bruce, I got enthused again. I started considering training and went back to studying some Kung Fu and doing some Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, which I did up until about 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm just back to doing Tai Chi Chuan again. Yes, sir. No, I didn't say I didn't get the part. I said I almost turned it down. Well, when I first started training, as I was just explaining, I never anticipated that there'd be anything related to movies involved in it. It was a very private hobby, if you will. I even thought when, on occasion, after a couple of years, by about 1970, somebody would show up in the dojo with a script and want to talk to me about it, that it was not the thing to do. I didn't feel right about it. I didn't feel, it's hard to explain, I don't want to seem prudish or anything, but I didn't feel it mixed somehow. It's hard to explain why, but I didn't. When I stopped training, I adopted a kind of loose or more relaxed attitude. I didn't feel obligated to regard martial arts training as something, I wouldn't say sacred, but something apart from the commercial world is what I'm trying to say. So at that point, I read this script and I said, this is going to work. The time has come. This is going to be successful. And I agreed to do it. And I put the script away. It was a very thin script. Then sometime before the film was to start, I said I'd better read it again. I read it again, and I decided it was too thin. That I was, as I said before, primarily an actor and not a martial artist or a stuntman. And I felt that I was maybe, it wasn't the thing for me to do. When I mentioned that to the producers, they got very upset and began to talk to me and ask me questions about why I didn't want to do it. And we got to discussing it. My interests were the role and the movie. They agreed that they were going to make the role more interesting, give it some more meaning, things like that. In fact, had I known that I was asked for by Bruce Lee, that I'd been sort of chosen to be the character Roper in the film by Bruce Lee, I might have asked for some other things like more money. Yes? No, I didn't. No, I hadn't. I'd seen him on television once when he was at a boxing match and he gave an interview and a quick demonstration, and I'd heard about him. His name was around town, around Los Angeles, and I was anxious to meet him. My first meeting, I was quite excited. I was like certainly like a student, meeting the master, and I was really quite taken with him, and all along I was, yes. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. That's right, I guess he didn't. I've just learned that he saw what would be something like a rough cut before it was finalized. I'm not sure how rough a cut it was, whether music had, music hadn't been added. It was sometime in May that he must have seen some of it, and I was told that he was very, very excited about it. It would have been about the same time that I last spoke to him, which he arrived in Los Angeles and he called me, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I've come to see a doctor." I said, "Why?" And he said that he'd been fainting. And I said, well, what's the matter? He said, I don't know. But he said, maybe there won't be a Bruce Lee. And I thought that was really cryptic and kind of, it sort of turned my hair up. I thought he was exaggerating as well, and I kind of kidded him. Said, well, come on, what are you talking about? Something like that. But I knew somehow that he meant it. So I called him a couple of days later, and he had had some tests at a doctor, and he was all excited and feeling cheerful because the results of the tests were seemed to give him a clean bill of health, and the doctor told him that he had the body of an 18-year-old, and he was cheerful, and it was the last time I ever spoke to him. He went back to Hong Kong and died, I think, about two and a half months later. Yes. Illness? No. I never saw anything like that. He was someone who took terrific care of himself. Chinese food in general, Cantonese food is considered very healthy. He was very, very especially careful. He was taking all kinds of supplements. I had even advised him because he seemed so excited about the position he was in. He was being courted by producers in Hong Kong who were offering him $500,000, and he was not interested in that. He said, I remember him saying that Marlon Brando could get $2 million, so could he. It was a time of his life where there was such big stakes that he was really, I would say, tense, and I was kind of, friendly with him and advised him to just take a drink every once in a while, which it seemed to me he wasn't inclined to do. So he seemed like certainly a health enthusiast and an extremely fit person. Well, I was on the set the day that they had the scene in which Bruce cut his hand on the bottle that Bob Wall held. Obviously, on the face of it, it looked like a question of a Chinese production where fake bottles are not used or don't exist. Whereas in Hollywood, we have a glass that is not, dangerous to use in scenes like that. And it seemed to be certainly an accident. But I know that Bruce was very upset about it and quite angry. I really didn't know much more about what was going on in the background of that film. Yes? Yes, he was challenged once that I saw. A very young fellow was sitting on a wall and speaking to him. Sort of looked like Humpty Dumpty, come to think of it now. He actually wound up being Humpty Dumpty, because he was saying something to Bruce that I really didn't understand. It was in Cantonese or Mandarin, but apparently he was questioning his ability. Something like, well, you're good in the movies, but are you any good in real life? So Bruce asked him to come down, and it was over in a flash. He hit him in the nose and bloodied it, and the kid realized that he had overmatched himself very quickly, and that was it. There's nothing more to it. No, I don't. I met his wife, Linda, while we were all in Hong Kong. We visited, went out a couple of times and visited, but after Bruce's death, my only real relationship was with Bruce. So I really haven't, no. I'm sorry, I can't hear.
We correspond.
Yes. I watched and actually took pictures of some of the scenes being done. I recall one large scene where Bruce was fighting with about a dozen guys, And I think he had spent the day or two before with all those fellas. They were all part of a group of pals of his, stuntmen, local guys from Hong Kong. And I think he worked out the basics at home and took great time in rehearsing on the set with them all. I think it was just a rehearsal situation that evolved, you know, until finally he felt comfortable with it. Everybody was in tune, and they began filming it. Yes? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. So, well, I'm not really sure I know what is censored. I've only heard recently that what nunchucks are, what are called flails here, are censored. I don't know, it's kind of puzzling. I don't know what else is censored in Great Britain. I'm not really familiar with censorship. Guns and stuff are allowed, I suppose, huh? In movies. That's because they're not allowed in real life. I guess. There's a kind of funny inverse correspondence between what appears on the screen and what is in reality. Usually what is in reality frequently doesn't appear on the screen and vice versa. I don't know. I don't know that having nunchucks. There was a while in the United States, I remember that it was a controversy about it, and I think it became a felony to carry them, right?
Join together and have to take the
So there's some legislation or some legal prohibition against the use of that or the carrying of that in the United States, though everything else seems to be around. Everybody seems to be armed, which, of course, as Bruce once said, you know, he's not as quick as a 45. So martial arts really, in this day and age in the United States, are practiced, I think, with caution, because you never can tell if you're engaging in some kind of an argument with somebody that is not armed with a weapon, a pistol. Yes, sir. Yes, it was difficult. I had some experience working in other parts of the world where actors were being asked to mime English that they were learning by rote. But he was a very charming gentleman and very cooperative and very obliging. And he was trying his hardest, and, you know, I worked with him very, very willingly. And I think he did a very good job. Yeah. Yes, sir. What was he like? Well, I think he was Mr. Canton of whatever it would have been, a few years before. He was a bodybuilder, power lifter, obviously quite strong, and pretty agile, pretty quick. I don't know how much real martial arts training he had, but he was able to sort of more than go through the motions, that's for sure. And he was quite powerful. And he was, you know, a good Joe to work with. We had fun working together. Bruce choreographed all those scenes. The ideas were ideas that were worked out while we were doing them. For example, I think when there's a scene where I bite him on the leg when he's strangling me, it was a last-minute suggestion by Bruce. He said, "Why don't you bite him on the leg?" I said, "Okay, good idea." You know, we did that. Listen. Mm-hmm.
Then you get other sound effects. You don't see that effects. You go falling down. You don't know what they're saying.
Oh.
It's temporary for nowhere. It's still working about time to pay it. And forward it's fold.
I don't know. I've been advised that it's censored, yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Any other? Yes, sir. I've only seen a little bit of him. I think the most interesting guy that's come on the scene is Steven Seagal. I saw his first film, and I thought it was a very good debut. I thought he, for a first time out as an actor, really was quite good. And furthermore, that at this stage of the game, if it's going to be a martial arts kind of film, he was showing something different. It wasn't just, you know, punching and kicking. there seemed to be something else going on, which is, of course, he's a master of Aikido. And I think that was kind of catchy and novel. It seemed interesting to me anyway, and I think he's pretty good. Yes, sir? No. No, I haven't, but I've been in a couple of films that, sci-fi, science fiction type things where for a period of time, martial arts could be entered into anything like that, especially science fiction seemed to fit in somehow. And so I've done some scenes where I, threw some kicks and punches in other films after that, but not lately. Plans to do what? Someone mentioned something. I think actually the producers of Enter the Dragon were Fred Weintraub and Paul Heller. And about a year ago, Weintraub said something about we're cooking up something with the characters or something like that. But it's beyond me as to what you would do with 50-year-old characters. Maybe their sons. Yes. Would I consider it? Well, I just stated it would have to be something of a story that would be, realistically novel about what these characters might be like. And that's possible. But to make a martial arts film with me doing martial arts today, almost 20 years later, I was 37 when I did that film. Not likely. And actually, I neglected to mention that because it's the most obvious thing. The engine that pulled Enter the Dragon was Bruce Lee. Without him, I don't know what meaning a film would have called Enter the Dragon. I'm afraid it would be a great disappointment. I don't think the chances are great that there'll be one. Yes? Sure, I certainly would. Yeah, that's all I can say. I certainly would have. Yes? Yeah. Right. Well, I think it was a kind of intensity that he had about his interest. I mean, when he spoke, some of the things he said, about emotional content, when he was talking about executing a technique, he meant you don't do this unless you're angry, and if you do it with feeling, with the intention, and I think in general that's probably, he was very expressive because I think something was going on in him at all times. I watched a little bit of the interview and heard his laugh, I think for the first time in all these years, and I was reminded not only of his intensity of anger, but his intensity of amusement. He was always and easily amused and filled with stories and a sense of sort of joy and interest in things. He was an energetic person for sure, and he was very alive. I think all those things contributed to what you're talking about. I really don't know much of what I've only seen bits and pieces of Jackie Chan. I think from what I've seen, he's very adept. I mean, he's fantastic in many ways, but I don't know what he's like as a film personality, I'm not an avid follower of all martial arts films. I am mostly to see what's going on in terms of styles and techniques and things like that. I'm still interested in the traditional martial arts, things like Tai Chi and Bagua and Xing Yi and stuff like that, because I think there's a purpose to them beyond just aggressive self-defense, Anything else? Yes, sir. No, as a matter of fact, The very first scene filmed in Enter the Dragon was filmed in the United States with me on that golf course. They made the mistake of attempting to, or thinking they had to speed up that scene. It turned out to be a big mistake. It was obviously, you undercrank the film to get a faster speed. Well, it turned out looking ridiculous, and none of us had to be changed. It was just the way it was, you know, including myself in those days.
That is that.
Yes. Bruce was constantly showing me little things. You know, do this, or you don't have to do that, or if you try this, and something like that. So we were in constant discussion and collaboration, and I was a very willing pupil and very appreciative of all his insights. Yes, sir. Jim Kelly. I saw Jim Kelly about 2 or 3 months ago for the first time in perhaps 15 years. He somehow gravitated away from the film business. I don't think he's totally of his wanting to. I think he's interested in getting back. He seemed to become something of a semi-pro tennis player for a while. He looked quite good. We talked briefly. I don't know what his plans are, though. Yes. You know, that kind of a question, that kind of thinking is really twofold. First of all, in terms of what kind of a match are you thinking of? Turtles, is that? Maybe that's it. If you're talking about a box office match, yes, because they're a box office match to Bruce Lee. You know, for a while, full contact karate was a thing in the United States, but the rules were such that it wasn't what Bruce Lee and what these guys were talking about. There were prescribed rules, and it was as prescribed, meaning as limited in a way as Western boxing is. That you mustn't do this and you can't do that, you can't do another thing. Other than that, I don't know. I don't even want to see what could happen between two men who just want to just destroy one another. I don't think it would be such an interesting thing to watch, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, anything else? Game of death? I really don't know. I have no answer to that. I'm not privy to any information on that. Yes, ma'am? Would I have liked to have been in all of them? I'm glad that I was in one. I don't know. It wasn't my calling, I didn't think, to be a martial arts actor. I happened to be an actor that, as I've explained already, and in addition to what I've mentioned, what happened was that I studied Japanese karate with a group, and we were doing a demonstration at a local university, and Bruce Lee came. I didn't know this, was there, watched it, saw it, seen me, saw that I could do some of these things, and then thought of me for the role in Enter the Dragon. And that's how I was contacted as a result of that. Afterwards, after that film, I never really thought much about doing other martial arts films. I didn't know what else could be done. Obviously, other people did. Chuck Norris made a career out of it, and I think that's great. But I like doing what I do, which is a variety of character roles. I just as soon play the good guy, the bad guy, the guy who has a moral dilemma as well as a physical dilemma or a conflict or something like that. I find greater satisfaction in that, and I don't think I've been a good martial arts hero.
You don't understand your word for it. You know, apart from martial arts. That's about what you see.
Oh, yes, constantly I get questions about Bruce Lee. As a matter of fact, I sometimes have I've developed a fantasy of being mugged. You know what that is, mugged? You know, somebody coming up to you and saying, with a gun, and say, "Give me money." Say, "Man, tell me about Bruce," and putting the gun away. And I don't doubt that that could happen someday. Yeah.
Right, last question, the guy in the wall.
So, um, I just decided I was going to be me and go and do what I was going to do, which is about what he was talking about for himself, express himself. And that's what I've been doing and continue to do. Try to do anyway. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you join with me in thanking Mr. John Saxon? Now,
There's not many fans. Standard was. That's a pop wall.
Double end.
Excuse me, can you just go this way, please? Could you just go this way, please?
So that one's